Have you ever sat there staring at your phone, watching someone slowly become a ghost inside your own home? Not physically gone, still alive in this world, still breathing, but the distance between you feels wider than any ocean could ever be. That is the kind of alone that nobody warns you about. And if you are watching this video right now, something tells me you already know exactly what I am talking about. Let me ask you something. When was the last time someone made you feel like you were too much? Not once, but over and over until you started to believe them, until you started shrinking yourself down into a version that required less space just so you could stay in their life. Maybe you stopped sharing things that mattered to you because every time you opened up, something in their eyes went cold. Maybe you stopped asking for what you needed because every time you did, you watched them pull further away. And somewhere deep inside, you made a decision that you will never admit to anyone. You decided that being close to them, even from a distance, even in pieces, was better than being honest about the ache it was causing inside you. Here's what nobody talks about. That decision you made to stay, to keep trying, to keep showing up even when you got nothing back, that was not weakness. That was your heart doing exactly what it was designed to do. Your heart wanted to love and be loved. It did not know how to give up on something it had already invested in. That is not a flaw in you. That is just how human beings are built. We hold on because letting go feels like admitting we were wrong about something we so desperately wanted to be right about. But here is the part that will change everything for you. There comes a day. Maybe it is already here for you, a day when something inside you finally stops negotiating with the part of you that wants to keep holding on. A day when the pain of staying becomes heavier than the fear of walking away. And in that moment, something shifts that you cannot explain with words. Something inside your chest stops fighting. Something in your mind finally goes quiet. You look at the person you have been chasing and you see them clearly for the very first time, not through the lens of hope, not through the fog of longing, just clearly. That moment is not the end of something. That moment is the beginning of everything you have been asking the universe for, but never believed you deserved. Now I want you to understand something before we go any deeper. This video is not going to be another piece of content telling you to just move on, to delete their number, to act like you do not care. That is not what this is about. This is about something much more powerful. This is about what happens inside of you the moment you stop chasing someone who was never running toward you in the first place. This is about the psychological shift that occurs the second you reclaim the energy you have been pouring into someone who could never pour back. This is about understanding why you got stuck in this cycle and how to never get trapped in it again. And I need you to stay until the very end because what I am about to share with you in the last section will rewire how you see yourself. It will change the way you think about love, about connection, about what you deserve, but only if you let it all unfold. Only if you trust that every word here is being said for you, so do not go anywhere. This is only the beginning. What I want you to know right now, in this moment, is that the fact you are still here means something important about you. It means you have been fighting for something you believed in even when no one else could see why. That quality inside of you, that refusal to give up, that desperate hope that things could be different, that same quality is going to save your life once you point it in the right direction. But right now, it is being pointed at someone who is not built to meet you where you are standing. And that is not their fault. And it is not yours either. It is just the truth. And the truth is where freedom begins. Does this sound familiar? You wake up in the morning and before your eyes even fully open, your mind is already replaying a conversation from 3 days ago. You are not even fully conscious yet, and your brain is right back in that moment where you sent a message and the reply came back 4 hours later with just 2 words. You start analyzing those 2 words. You pick them apart letter by letter. You convince yourself that the comma placement meant something, that the lack of an emoji was actually a sign of depth rather than distance, that maybe, just maybe, if you had phrased it differently, the response would have been longer, warmer, closer to what you needed it to be. You have done this. I know you have because if you are the kind of person who watches videos like this, you are also the kind of person who has spent an embarrassing amount of time trying to decode someone who was never that complicated to begin with. They were just telling you exactly who they were in the only language they know. but you could not hear it because you were too busy translating their silence into something your heart could accept. This is the pattern. Let me name it plainly so you can see it clearly for the first time without any emotion clouding your vision. You replay conversations because somewhere in your mind you believe that if you study them hard enough, you will find the mistake you made. The one thing you could have done differently that would have changed everything. That keeps you trapped in the past because your brain convinces you that the past is where the answer lives. But it does not. The past only shows you what you already know. And what you already know is that you are not enough to make them stay. Then comes the rewriting. You go back through your own words and you change them. Not the real words, the ones in your head. You take what you actually said and you soften it. You make it less needy in your memory. You pretend that you were calmer than you were, more composed than you felt. You do this because the version of you that actually existed in that moment is too painful to look at. That version was desperate. That version was breaking. And you cannot accept that about yourself, so you rewrite the story until it feels more bearable. But here is what that costs you. Every time you rewrite your own history, you are telling yourself that your real feelings were not valid, that your real reactions were too much, that you need to hide from what you actually felt just to survive inside a relationship that was slowly draining the life out of you. And finally, there's the convincing. This is where it gets dangerous. You take the smallest fragments of almost, and you build entire cathedrals out of them. One text that felt warm becomes proof that they love you. One moment where they seemed present becomes evidence that things are changing. You hold on to the 20% that felt like something, and you use it to explain away the 80% that felt like nothing. You take a maybe and you build a future around it. You take an almost and you turn it into an almost everything. And the whole time, you are not lying to them. You are lying to yourself. You are telling yourself that the relationship is better than it is, because the alternative means admitting that you have been standing in the rain, waiting for someone who already walked inside and closed the door behind them. You have been living inside this loop, and you did not even realize it because the loop feels like love when you are inside it. But it is not love. It is obsession dressed up in the language of devotion. It is your attachment system hijacked by a brain that learned very early that almost connection is better than no connection at all. That is the wound we are healing today. Here is what I need you to understand before we keep going. You are not stupid for being in this pattern. You are not naive. You are not broken. You are a human being with a nervous system that was designed to seek connection above all else. And when the only connection available to you comes in fragments and gaps, your system adjusts. It learns to survive on crumbs. It learns to call almost enough. That is not a failure. That is adaptation. But now it is time to adapt in a new direction. I want to ask you to do something for me right now. I want you to pause this video and take one slow, deep breath. Inhale through your nose. Hold it for 3 seconds. And release it through your mouth like you are letting something heavy leave your body. Do that one more time. Good. That breath you just took, that was your first moment of choosing yourself over the loop in a very long time. That is what this entire video is preparing you for. The moment you stop choosing the loop and start choosing the life on the other side of it. Hold on to that feeling. Keep it close, because what I am about to show you next is going to make you want to come back to it over and over again. And if you stay with me until the very end, I promise you something. You will never look at this situation the same way again. You will never feel confused about what happened or why it hurt so much. And most importantly, you will never be trapped inside this pattern again, because you will finally understand exactly why you got in and exactly how to get out. That is the promise of this video, but only if you keep watching. Only if you trust that every single section here was built to reach you specifically where you are standing right now. Do not stop. The best part is still ahead. Let me take you somewhere important right now. I want to show you what is actually happening inside your brain and nervous system when you get stuck chasing someone who cannot meet you the way you need to be met. Because once you understand this, everything changes. The shame you have been carrying around about why you could not just walk away, that is about to disappear. And what takes its place is something far more powerful. It is called clarity. Here is what you need to know. There is a term in psychology called an anxious attachment style. It describes people whose nervous systems became hypersensitive to connection because somewhere in their early years, connection felt inconsistent, unpredictable, sometimes available, and sometimes gone without warning. If that sounds like your childhood, you are not alone. Millions of people grew up in homes where love came and went based on conditions they could not control. And their brains learned to do whatever it took to get attention, to keep the peace, to make sure they were not abandoned again. That programming does not just disappear when you become an adult. It follows you into every relationship you enter. And when you meet someone who is emotionally unavailable, someone who pulls away every time you get close, your nervous system does not see a problem. Your nervous system sees something familiar. And familiar, even when it is painful, feels safer to your brain than unknown territory ever could. This is where it gets really interesting. There is another concept in psychology called intermittent reinforcement. It is one of the most powerful forces that exists in human behavior. Here is how it works. When you give someone a reward that comes completely randomly, unpredictable and inconsistent, their brain becomes hooked on trying to predict when the next one will arrive. Think about it like a slot machine. You pull the lever and sometimes you win and sometimes you do not. The inconsistency is what makes it addictive, not the wins, the unpredictability. That is exactly what happens when you are chasing someone who is avoidant. They give you just enough warmth to keep you hoping, just enough presence to make you think they are almost ready to open up, just enough connection to keep you holding on, but then they pull away again, and you are left hanging, confused, desperate to understand what you did wrong. And then just when you are about to give up, they come back with something small, a text, a glance, a moment where they actually seem present, and your whole system lights up. Your brain floods with dopamine. You feel such relief that you mistake that relief for happiness, for love, for proof that this person belongs in your life. But it is not any of those things. It is your brain rewarding itself for surviving an unpredictable environment. That moment of warmth after silence is not them choosing you. It is your nervous system calming down from a stress response. And the more times this cycle repeats, the deeper it gets rooted in your brain. You are not choosing them. You are conditioned to them. This is why willpower alone never works. You cannot think your way out of an addiction. You cannot reason with a nervous system that learned to feel safe in chaos. Every time you try to walk away, your brain screams at you to go back because the pattern has become encoded so deeply that breaking it feels like threatening your own survival. That is how powerful this is. And understanding that is the first real step toward breaking free from it permanently. Now, I want to be very clear about something here because this matters. None of this means you are damaged. It does not mean you are broken beyond repair. It does not mean you will never be able to have a healthy relationship. What it means is that your system adapted to survive in an environment that was not safe for your heart. And that adaptation kept you alive long enough to get here. But now the environment has changed. You are not a child anymore. You do not have to keep using the same survival tools you used back then. You can learn new ones. You can rewire the way your nervous system responds to uncertainty and distance and silence. That is possible. And that is exactly what this video is going to help you do. But before we get there, you need to see one more thing clearly. You are not hooked on this person because they are special. I know that feels true. And I know you do not want to hear it right now, but you need to hear it. You are hooked on the pattern. You are hooked on the cycle. You are hooked on the rush of dopamine that comes every time they come back after going away. If it were not this specific person triggering that cycle, it would be someone else in your life creating the exact same response. The person is just the current vehicle your brain is using to run a program that was installed a very long time ago. Once you see that clearly, you stop needing them to change. You stop needing the pattern to resolve differently. You start seeing it for what it actually is. And from that vantage point, from that place of clear understanding, you can finally make a different choice. Not a better choice made with struggle and pain and force. A different choice made from a place of genuine freedom. That is what we are building toward together. Keep watching. The shift is closer than you think. I need you to look at something with me right now. I need you to look at what has actually been taken from you while you were busy trying to make someone else choose you. Not in a poetic way, not in an abstract way. I mean, really see the cost that has been stacking up every single day. You stayed inside this pattern waiting for something that was never coming. Start with time. Time is the one resource you can never get back. Not a single second of it. Every morning you woke up and immediately checked your phone before your feet hit the floor, wondering if they texted overnight. That is a moment you will never have again. Every lunch break you spent rereading old conversations, trying to find meaning in words that were never that deep to begin with. Every evening you stayed up late analyzing what you should have said differently. All of that time is gone. It was spent on someone who was not even thinking about you the same way you were thinking about them. That is not an accusation. That is just a fact. And I know it hurts to hear that, but it is also the thing that is finally going to set you free if you let it. Now think about your self-respect. There is a version of you that existed before this relationship that had a very clear understanding of what he would and would not accept from other people. That version of you had boundaries, had standards, had a list of non-negotiables that he would have defended with his whole chest, but somewhere along the way, in the process of trying to keep this person, you erased that list. You crossed lines you swore you would never cross. You made excuses for behavior you would have never tolerated from anyone else. And every time you did that, you told yourself it was because this person was different, because love meant bending, because if you just loved hard enough, the bending would be worth it. But here is what actually happened. Every time you compromised yourself to keep them, you lost a piece of the person you came into this relationship as. And now you are sitting here wondering why you feel so lost, even though you technically still have them in your life. Your emotional energy has been completely hijacked. Think about the mental bandwidth that goes into managing this dynamic, the constant analyzing of their behavior, the running scripts in your head about what you should do next, the anxiety that sits in your chest every time they go silent, the hope that spikes every time they come back. That is not just emotional energy, that is cognitive load. That is real psychological resources being drained every single day. Resources that were supposed to go toward building your career, developing your skills, creating a life you actually wanted to live. But instead, they have been completely consumed by a person who is never consuming you back. You have been running at full capacity with nothing left in the tank for yourself, because every last drop has been going toward maintaining a connection that was draining you instead of filling you up. And then there is sleep. Do not underestimate what the cycle has done to your physical body, the overthinking that keeps you awake at night, the conversations you rehearse while staring at the ceiling, the way your heart rate spikes every time you hear your phone buzz but then crashes when you see it is not them. That cycle of hope and disappointment happening night after night. Your body has been stuck in a low-grade stress response for months or maybe years, and that takes a real toll. Your immune system weakens, your focus deteriorates, your mood becomes unstable. You are not just emotionally exhausted, you are physically worn down because your body never gets to fully rest. It is always waiting, always anticipating, always braced for the next silence or the next text. Here's the part I want you to really sit with. The version of yourself that got lost in this process. The dreams you stopped pursuing because you did not have the energy. The friendships you neglected because you were too consumed with what was happening with them. The hobbies you abandoned because your mind was always somewhere else. The person you were becoming before this relationship started has been on pause for as long as you have been pouring yourself into someone who could not pour back. And that person is still in there waiting for you to come back, waiting for you to choose him again, waiting for you to stop abandoning him in favor of someone who is never going to be able to give him what he needed. None of this is meant to make you feel guilty. None of this is meant to make you hate yourself for the time you spent. I need you to hear that clearly, because the last thing I want is for you to walk away from this section feeling worse than when you walked into it. What I want is for you to see the full picture of what staying in this pattern has been costing you. Not just the emotional toll that everyone talks about, but the actual real-world consequences that show up in every area of your life. Because once you see it clearly, once you really understand what you have been paying, something shifts. The cost becomes too visible to ignore. And that visibility creates the kind of urgency that actually produces change. You have been spending yourself in all the wrong places for as long as you can remember, but today, right now, you have the chance to start spending yourself in places that actually honor what you are worth. Keep watching. This is where it gets real.